Hello, Gene.
Hello, Bill. You know,
Yeah,
seems like I saw you not that long ago.
yeah. A couple of weeks ago.
A
Time
couple of weeks
flies,
ago.
man. We're already in
Las
November.
Vegas, baby. We were at the SupplySide Global.
That's right. SupplySide Global. So, folks, we're going to do our debrief today for SupplySide Global. Last year, Gene and I did the podcast there, and we interviewed some guests. That was a little challenging from a scheduling standpoint and getting people to come to the press room. So we didn't do that this year. This year we did a little bit different. We're just going to do our kind of overview debrief here, and then go from there. But so what were some of the uh, key highlights for you, Gene, from this show compared to last year?
You know, you don't always have a lot that changes from year to year, but for me, there were two trends, a bunch of smaller trends. But if I were
Mm,
kind of going to group them all together under a heading, one heading would be women's health, and
yeah,
the other one would be longevity. And of course, there's multiple things under each of those. But I did find a whole lot in that area. So those are that for me. The highlights were that. Of course, I was involved in a couple of education sessions, which were quite interesting. I'll talk a little bit about later. Um, and frankly, some pretty good dinners that we had out, including one at Wolfgang Puck's
oh,
Karama,
that
which of
was
course you remember because you were there.
yeah, that was really good actually. And we did that last year. We had the dinner there.
We
It was
did.
and excellent dinner. Oh my gosh, it was delicious. Um, but the show for me, I think I'd agree with you. Women's health was probably at the top of the list. I saw more of that this year. Last year was all about GLP-1, and
Yeah,
there was still
there was a
some of
lot of
that this
interest.
year. Yeah, not
Yeah.
a lot as much interest this year in that, but women's health and longevity for sure. If you look at some of the sessions that were ongoing there, education sessions. So yeah, they kind of tracked with that. Um, it was a big show for NutriSelect.ai because this
Oh,
was last year when I was at the show. We had just developed a prototype. I hadn't even officially launched the company at that point because that was only April of this year. So this was kind of the first real introduction with the meetings. And I had over 35 meetings, Gene, in 2 days. It was insane for the show. But I'll get into the details of that in a minute. But for me, it's a milestone year. We put a flag in the sand for this one for NutriSelect.ai, and you'll see why when I talk about it later. But very exciting. I also saw that next year, thank God, they're going to extend it to the expo hall to 3 days instead of two. And I
yeah.
think people have
Well,
been
two
asking
and a
for that
half
for.
really. The last day is a half a day.
Oh, is it a half day only?
hmm
Okay,
hmm
all right.
Still, that's
Well,
not bad.
no, it's not bad because actually this year they had that upper floor with a bunch more
Yeah.
exhibitors. And I don't know, did you get to go upstairs at all when
Well,
you were there?
I did, but I didn't end up going upstairs to look at the booths. They had like a speakers like gathering place to talk to the other speakers and network. And so I went up there for a short period of time just to say hello, and yeah, it was a worthwhile venture.
Yeah, they had a little speaker stage. One of the stages was up there. That's right. But yeah, I had some meetings up there. I didn't get a chance to walk through, but that's where all the new first-time exhibitors were. So
hmm
I was talking with the folks at People Science, for example. They were upstairs. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but they were up there. And then last year, they didn't have a booth last year, but this year they're up there. That's what they. Last year, if you remember, they put it near the supply side garden. They put it in the 6,000 range. They put the first time exhibitors, but this time they put them all upstairs. So
You see,
I
that
remember,
reminds me of what they're doing
yeah,
at um, Natural Products Expo West in Anaheim. It's not so
yeah,
much an upstairs thing, although they've always had an upstairs. It's a separate section where you got to walk all the way down at the end of the hall, cross this area, and then they got like all the new stuff from
yeah,
and so that this is they've taken a note from that page,
yeah.
and which is not a bad idea.
No, and I remember I can tell you the year that Expo started to do that was 2007 because I was launching one of my products with my company. And that was the first year they had a downstairs. They put a bunch of people downstairs. And so we were a first time exhibitor. We were downstairs. Now, I haven't been to Expo in a long time, but now I've seen the floor plan. They've kind of extended it out to different areas. But it was just the one floor. And then now it's in '07 is when they kind of dropped it down. It was like 45,000 people in attendance then. For SupplySide Global, I heard it was over 20,000 for this year. So that's a big turnout. And with that, and over 1,600 exhibitors, so they had to branch out into another floor. So I can see that growing for SupplySide as we go forward, which is kind of exciting.
And what's interesting is anybody who goes to VitaFoods Europe, the new venue in Barcelona is huge. I mean, it's square footage wise, it's bigger than SupplySide, but there's still more exhibitors at SupplySide.
Okay. So it felt a little roomy then when you were there.
Yeah, it was spread out more. Their booths are a little bit bigger,
Cool. So did you get a chance to visit any booths? I mean, I visited a lot of booths because I had meetings with companies. I'll talk about that in a minute.
I had a chance to just visit a few booths. I was so busy at the Nutraland USA booth. We're so busy there. So many people coming. Of course, I had done the 2 education sessions, so I had some people coming to talk to me. But I only was able to get away really just to interview a few people about their thoughts on what's trending at the show and what their predictions are for this coming year, which we're covering a little bit later. But yeah, that would be what I had a chance to do.
Cool.
And
what about the education sessions? You did a couple, right?
Yes. But my first on Tuesday morning, I was it was a 2-hour session that involved several of us. 2 of us did little keynote addresses. I was one of them, and mine was on GLP-1, agonist drugs, the role that nutraceuticals can play, either as a quote unquote alternative or complementary agent, which I would prefer, and as helping to counter some of the side effects. And so I talked about that. And then we also had a session, a group of people who are answering a lot of questions. Very interesting. The take home from that, from if you were to look at all the speakers talking about what do you use together with GLP-1 agonist drugs, the biggest one was protein.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah, protein intake is really important because you have muscle deterioration, right?
You do. And also, I had announced there that there's going to be new drugs, sort of next generation ones, that are supposed to be more effective, less risk of side effects, and so forth, that are coming over the next year or two. So, it was a good session. The second session was just me, and that was on one called Biohacking Longevity, and and it's about biohacking longevity using evidence-based nutraceuticals to help impact gene expression. And that one was very, very successful. We had literally standing room only. All the tables were occupied, all the chairs in the room, and people were standing. It was a topic they wanted to learn more about. Wow. And what I did is I wrote a booklet, and I offered it free to anybody there as a download. They could do a QR code and scan it. And I'll just say this to any of our listeners. If any of you want the booklet that I wrote on how to formulate biohacking products for longevity, you want that, we'll give it to you for free. Just got to send us, tell me on LinkedIn, or go to our website here for Bioactive Nexus and leave us a note. And I'll be happy to email you a copy of it for free. And so it was pretty successful. And that second topic, I think just fit in nicely with one of the big trends, which is longevity. So,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
just going to say, yeah, that fits in with the longevity piece for sure. And we did a show on biohacking a few months ago, and again, that's tied to the whole longevity thing. And
sure is.
I think for me, more and more that trend from consumers is really about proactively taking charge of their health and
Bingo.
really getting dialed into that. And the only problem with that is that there's too many products on the market, and how do you find those products? But we have a solution for that, which is
We do.
NutriSelect.ai. So that's a good segue for me to kind of talk about the kind of the feedback I got from that. So, like I said, I had over 35 meetings. I lost track of the number of meetings. Some of those, about a dozen of those were planned, but the reality is most of them were impromptu or people I couldn't get in contact with. Everybody's busy before the show or getting ready to go or whatever. But I ended up connecting last minute there at the show, which is always nice, which is the beauty of being able to go there in person and be able to visit the booths and stuff like that. So several meetings were getting set up in real time while I was traveling there, or right after traveling back, where people I couldn't connect with at the show were setting up a meeting. So the
I
momentum
couldn't
really,
believe it. You would come to our booth and tell me, I've had this many meetings so far. And I'm like, how the heck did you have that many meetings so far? Where so many people were just interested,
yeah.
very interested.
Well, and my mission for this show was to basically meet with ingredient companies and product brands. It was mostly ingredient companies, so half of those meetings were with ingredient companies, and we're talking all the major brands, and that's what the NutriSelect's Ingredient Science Accelerator 2.0. And I already had a preliminary meetings with a handful of companies before that, or exchanged emails, and they received the executive brief. But it was actually at the show that we were able to meet with my contact at those companies and their teams to discuss the accelerator program in detail and answer all their questions. And so the overall feedback, and if you remember, I launched this back in August, middle of August, just for product brands, but then I had ingredient companies approach me. Birkin was one of them, and said, "Hey, is this open to ingredient companies?" And I said, "Well, let me work on that, and then let's do that." And actually, so we pivoted to this 2.0 program because the reality is that the ingredient companies, as you know, Gene, they've carried the load in terms of doing clinical research
Yeah.
for years, not so much product brands. And so, but here's the feedback I got. So of the, and look, it was Burkham, it was Proby, KSM, Kaneka, Acker Biomarine, Classido, you guys, Nutriland, and then like Kemin, EPAX, Natural Remedies, ADM. ADM, I had a call with them the Monday after the show. So the feedback overall was really, really positive because they saw the value. Now, you know how our industry works traditionally. The ingredient companies, they're selling their ingredient, and maybe they have a branded ingredient. Nutriland USA is a good example. That they have your own dedicated research on, right? And that differentiates you from the commodity type ingredient in the space, right?
Right.
But one of the things I heard from some of the companies is that they still have trouble differentiating with product brands that come to the booth and want to buy the ingredient because they don't see the value add for that. Or in some cases, I heard that product brands, actually, I didn't know this, but some product brands don't even put the branded name of the ingredient on their supplement facts panel on the product, which
That's
is
right. They keep it generic.
they keep it generic, and it's like, why would you do that? Because
It never made sense to me because
yeah,
the consumer mindset, and I only know this from past surveys, but the
yeah,
consumer mindset is if you mentioned a branded material, the
yeah,
fact that you mentioned the branded material means it must be something special. Otherwise, why would you mention it? And
right,
so the idea of not mentioning it kind of allows that brand to switch to any other supplier midstream should they want to. But the problem is when they switch to another supplier, it may not be bioequivalent to the original material, and so
Right.
the claims are no longer substantiated, and that's how it goes sometimes.
Well, that's part of it actually, but I think the other part is they're trying to market and position their product brand. They're selling their brand. They're not selling the ingredient company's brand. They don't want to do that. So now Kaneka, on the other hand, told me that they don't allow that. So it has to be their branded name on the supplement facts panel, and that's a requirement when they sell their ingredient. Now, some companies do that, some don't. And of course, we have the other issue where they have no control. And I'm getting to why why the ingredient companies were so excited about the accelerator program, is because not only it's difficult to differentiate, they don't have any control over the product brands and what they do. Did they use the right dosage? Are they making the claims appropriately? And it's frustrating to them to be able to work with those brands because they see them making the wrong claims or don't use the right dosage or whatever, and it's just like they invested all this money in research, and they're not utilizing that for their marketing and for the brand. So here's the cool thing about NutriSelect. Now we're going to have a consumer-facing app where products, and it's for products, right? And for consumers to find science-based products. So when they see that science-based product now, it's going to have an N score. It'll have a rating system, gold, silver, bronze tier. We won't rate anything below bronze level because it doesn't register. It doesn't have the science or whatever reason. So let's say they're looking at a silver level product brand. In the report, we'll tell them in the app, the consumer, why we gave it that rating. And if there is actually a branded ingredient in there that has research, they're going to have their own N score if they go through the accelerator program. And that's going to be consumer facing now for the ingredient companies, where they never had that until now. NutriSelect's going to provide another avenue of visibility for them where the consumer now will say, oh, this contains gold tier ingredient, KSM 66 ashwagandha. And they go, okay, that's gonna. It won't be the same N score for the ingredient that's in there versus the product, because it depends what the product brand puts other ingredients, or they make the right claims, or use the right dosage. All those things. There is a scenario where the product brand could have a lower N score than the actual ingredient that's in there, depending on how they position it.
So, depending upon their formulation.
Right. Exactly. And so that piece everybody loves. So, ADM got this right away, my colleague there. And before I even told him, explain that, he said, oh, so ADM, since we spend the money on the research, they're going to see our ingredient first over our competitors. And I said, well, yeah, because if you got a gold tiered ingredient right in there, it's going to be right there for the consumer. And guess what? They're going to buy the product that has the overall best rating, probably, that the science that supports what they're looking for. So this is a first to have that sort of visibility, and that's something the ingredient companies, I heard from more than one, are pretty excited about, because now next year at SupplySide, Gene, this is my vision. Next year the discussion is very different. So next year the ingredient companies have our N score seal, because the app will be in the market by then, and they'll see the N score seal in their booth materials and display. And then now the product brands are going to say, the ones that may not be familiar with it, say, okay, what is that? And it changes the dynamic of the conversation, because now they've actually gone through and had their products rated and certified for efficacy, or their ingredients, excuse me. So now the product brand has another selling point, actually, if they look at it that way. But also it kind of forces the conversation. Is like, okay, you need to list if you want to use our N score rating within the N score of your product to see if it rates, you're going to need to actually list it in your supplement facts panel.
That's right. That ends up being good for raw material companies and good for consumers, because they'll be able to know. And ultimately good for the brands, because they're going to be able to, again, make it very clear that they are using these evidence-based ingredients. So I see. So here's where we are with that. We've got ongoing meetings with that. I also met with a big product brand. We had already started a conversation prior to the show. We met in person. I met one of the owners.
and they're super excited about it. They're a 25-year-old company, Jane. They've got like 175 SKUs. So they're super excited. They have bricks and mortar plus D2C. So in terms of selling their products, so they're really looking forward to moving that forward. Actually got a call with them this week, the follow up from SupplySide. So they'll probably be our first product brand, and our first ingredient company we haven't announced yet is Nutriland USA, because you guys have signed up already. And it kind of makes sense that you would do that, since you are on my advisory board and I'm on your
Indeed.
advisory board. And it makes sense to do that. Anyway, so we'll make an announcement about that, folks. As these companies sign on, I'm going to let people know who's coming on board. And over the next few months, we'll be taking every ingredient company's portfolios, the science they're building, taking their data sets. This is going to help us build our precision supplement intelligence platform and engine on the back end, long before we get to the app and commercial marketplace version of that on the market. So that's exciting for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think, was there anything? Oh, and I guess one last thing I want to say is that some of the other meetings were with our CRO partners. Now we made two big announcements just the week before the show, and one was let's talk about that. So we brought on our fourth CRO, Reputable Health. We did that press release the Monday the week before, and then on the Tuesday, and again that brings us up to with Radical Science, Centers for Applied Health Science, and that's Tim Ziegenfuss for there, who's also on the Science Advisory Board for NutriSelect. Alethio's, we haven't announced that yet because they just launched their company officially at SupplySide last 2 weeks ago. And then, and of course, Reputable Health. That was the one we announced, the fourth one. And we are talking to People Science. I'm hoping they're going to be our fifth one to come on board, so we'll see. And then other new partners, Gene. So I've potential partners to bring into our ecosystem that will support not only the accelerator programs, but also validate kind of what we're doing in terms of advancing evidence-based supplementation. So I'm excited to explore those opportunities, and we're going to have those discussions. The other thing that happened the Monday of the week of the supply side was the second interview with myself about NutriSelect with Nutra Ingredients, and they published that article on the Monday. So if you didn't see that, that's the second one. The first one was when we launched back in April, and so the journalist there, Claudia, is kind of following our journey. Our interview the week before was an hour and a half, so they held back. The editor held back a lot of the interview because they're going to do a long form story on NutriSelect towards the end of the year, beginning of the next year, and nice. Which is very cool. And then in terms of other media, things that happened as a result of meetings there or whoever I met with, I was asked the following Monday or Tuesday after the show last week by CRN. I was contacted by CRN, Council for Responsible Nutrition. They're doing a webinar in early December titled AI in Action, From Innovation to Oversight in the Supplement and Functional Food Industry. So I'll be one of 3 guest panelists on the webinar. So very excited about that. So I would say all in all, Gene, it was an awesome show for NutriSelect, a really good jump start. And next year is going to be even better because our end score is going to be out there with a lot of companies and brands by then. Of course, our consumer app will be on the market targeting Q2.
So I think that I think this year is going to the end of this year is just going to be like just the very, very beginning for NutriSelect.ai. I think it's going to be a very, very big next year, and I think it's going to be the talk of the town, so to speak. So,
is that your prediction, man?
Yeah, it's my prediction. I wanted to just take a moment to just elaborate slightly on what I said earlier, women's health and longevity. Yeah. In talking to some people around there, I talked to some different brands, and one of the Sepum was one of the brands, or Sepum, however you pronounce it. one of the brands I talked to, and they were talking about for women's health and everything old is new again. It's a fenugreek extract. They call it Zenova. Good for menstrual health, good for mood, stress, metabolic health. Talked to somebody at HP Ingredients, Haim over there, Tonkat Ali, their LJ100. They got research on it now for menopause and fertility. And so you look at that and you see some of these things for women's health. And then, of course, for longevity, you might think of it as a sports nutrition ingredient, but creatine is actually something that as we age, we get age-related muscle loss, and that really impacts us in negative ways. So Maypro has launched a Clonapure, which combines creatine monohydrate, phosphocreatine, and creatine phosphate, and for ATP production, energy, power, endurance, all of that. And so those are some of the interesting things. And then, of course, there's one of the other interesting ingredients is one from my company, which is the AKK001, the longevity postbiotic, which is Akkermansia municiphylla. And they take the probiotic, they pasteurize it or heat treat it, which kills the live bacteria, but what is retained are some of the different compounds that exist there. And this particular strain, which has some good research on it for cardiometabolic health and weight loss, was isolated from centenarians in a certain village in China. So everybody there, all these people there are over 100 and in good health. And so that's kind of interesting. So we see a lot of those things. There's been a new study that came out, the American Heart Association, and they reported on it. And they had said in their study, which was presented as an abstract at a conference, that in looking at an electronic records database where they looked at people with chronic insomnia, they found in there was an association between melatonin use, long-term melatonin use, and an increased chance of heart failure.
I saw the press on that. Yeah.
So I've actually written something that I wrote an article in response to on LinkedIn. Anybody can look it up. And I just wanted to hit some of the high points here that people should know about. When you see something like that, don't drop your supplement program or stop taking that particular nutraceutical until you really have good understand what the study was about. In this case, it should be clear that it was just a preliminary abstract. It wasn't even a pure. Wasn't the full peer-reviewed study. Also, it was an observational study, so it cannot prove causation. Only that there's a relationship. Okay, right. And for people who don't understand that, you could theoretically say, well, one of the highest in China, one of their highest incidents of disease is heart disease. Okay, and you say, oh look, all of those people eat rice, so there's an association. Well, yeah, but it's not the cause of that. So one has to be careful in what they say, and then also when you're entering information in an electronic database. All kinds of mistakes will be made and misclassified, and it doesn't capture all of the people using melatonin. And also, there's things like patients were also taking cardiometabolic drugs, and many of those drugs can cause or exacerbate heart failure. And finally, people who use melatonin chronically may have more comorbidities, anxiety, depression, and other factors, which themselves contribute to heart failure risk. But the real kicker is that if you go and you search PubMed and you look at, sleep and heart failure, you'll find that people who get really, really poor sleep are at much greater risk of heart failure. And furthermore, if you look at it, you'll find that many human studies showing that the use of melatonin in people with pre-existing heart failure actually help to improve parameters of their heart failure. Actually help to. So again, you should always look at these things a little more carefully. And I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because it always bothers me when something comes out and media doesn't report on it completely, and make it sensationalistic and don't really look at the science.
The other thing that bothered me about that news piece about that was the people still think, I don't know why, don't understand the mechanism of action for melatonin. First of all, it's not a sleep aid in that sense. It really can help with jet lag or sleep onset and sleep quality, but at certain dosages. In fact, when I was the global R&D, I was the global regulatory lead for sleep with Sanofi. Okay, and I wrote the melatonin position paper in our company and stuff. Majority of the research for sleep quality is in that 3 milligram range. I know in the U.S. you can use up to 10 milligrams. Same with Canada; their monograph allows that.
Everybody goes crazy with the doses.
There's no research beyond a little bit in the 5 milligram range, but most of it's in that 3 milligram range for sleep quality. There is no reason, or even lower. There's actually no research to support anything above 5 milligrams as a dose.
You really don't need to go there, right? In fact, a study we had just done on our Somato phytomelatonin, we used 2 milligrams and found people falling asleep 33% faster and a number of other positive effects. And it's like, well, you don't really need the high dose. Of course, phytomelatonin may actually work better than synthetic. We found that in another study, but that's another topic.
No, that's another topic. Anyway, but what we're talking about is this trust and transparency in the market, right? And again, this is another reason why we're doing NutriSelect, because this is going to be very objectively to evaluate the science. So like when these studies come out, it's really the mainstream media that puts it out there and skews it because they don't understand the research in the first place, right? And even scientists who dig into it don't always agree and even introduce their own bias into their evaluation of that. So NutriSelect is going to eliminate all that. All that discussion for any of that is going to go away because it'll all be based strictly objectively on that science and not interpreted by somebody else who thinks they know the science, which, even some of these social media influencers don't know anything either. So again, and the other thing is, I mentioned the CRM webinar coming up. Clearly AI tech and we just did a podcast, a couple of weeks ago, right, Gene? Or was that 3 weeks ago now? On AI, and it was an hour and a half bioactive breakdown. Go back and watch that because that is an excellent. We had a great guest panelist on for that show, and that deep dives the whole AI and data, and at least how it's going to impact our industry. And NutriSelect's going to lead the charge on that. We're the ones really leading on that. That's certainly why they approached us to come on the webinar. But Gene, you were able to capture a few video clips there. And so I do have a video clip that I can roll for some of the interviews that you did. And I think we'll just go ahead and roll that right now.
So we're here with Sam Joshi of SAM. And I've asked him the question. So, Sam, what is your answer?
So, Dr. Bruno, I think it's still going to carry forward in women's health. But I think one of the things that's coming back is going to be an older ingredient, just like Shatavari did, but we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. We're going to talk about a fenugreek extract. We call it Zenova. But again, it's for women's health, menstrual cycle regularity, mood, all these things. Stress also can have effects on metabolic health as well. There's many areas in which this old ingredient is going to be new. It's coming back in a different way. CFAM is going to bring it to you. It's already here. It's called Zenova. Look it up. But I think that's going to be your ingredient for 2026.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
So I am here with industry icon Danielle Lynn, and I have asked her the question. So what is your answer to that question, Danielle?
Trends. It's such a hot word because you don't know. There's enough trends in this industry that you say to yourself, well, which one? But I have to say that stress and sleep is probably number one, because if you're not sleeping and you're filled with stress, then you're probably not going to have a great life. And so I think that's really important. But I think throughout the next year, women's health, menopause, anything that has to do with empowering the female body, because it's been overlooked for a very long time. So I think that's probably the hottest stuff. And then maybe everybody coming together is a trend, making it a trend to be together and to work together as an industry. And I'm finding every group that I've gone to, people really want to unite to make a difference in the world. So I think that's a better trend.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks.
So this is Jeff Owen with Sabinza, and I've asked him the question. So, Jeff, tell me, what is your answer?
Yes, sir. First of all, good morning. Sorry about that. My name is Jeff Owen. I work for Sabinza, the Southeast Regional Sales Manager. And what I have seen in my relationships with my accounts, a trending item is liver health, liver protective health. Particularly because in the United States, we are seeing truly an epidemic rise in both alcohol and non-alcoholic related fatty liver disease. So Sabinza, we have an item that is truly trending in the area of liver health because of these concurrent concerns. It's a product called Live Longa, and it's basically a tri-blend of our Livinol, which is a liver support protective ingredient from India. Very good to help with elevated liver enzymes, fatty liver symptoms. It also has Garcinia indica, which is another hepatoprotective liver ingredient. And then thirdly, it has in it bioperin, or black pepper fruit extract, which is kind of known as nature's universal thermonutrient. It helps increase the bioavailability and utilization of the other nutrients. So these ingredients, and this is such a critical component that Sabinza understands, is it has a synergy where these ingredients work together. So for those individuals who have concerns with their liver, that they've been diagnosed with elevated liver enzymes, maybe there's a family history of liver problems, cholesterol, lipid issues, this could be a very good product to take. The wonderful thing about this product is that it's safe and effective. It can be taken even with medications. It's not contraindicated. So, and the wonderful thing about Sabinza, this is a trademarked registered ingredient, meaning that there's clinical science and evidence supporting its efficacy.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So I'm here with Alex Sorrentino from LipoRec, and I asked her the question. So, Alex, what is your answer?
All right, so obviously the recent regulatory changes in the synthetic color industry has put a lot of opportunity in front of our labs to explore replacing synthetic colors with natural colors. So we are at the show today highlighting our natural colors, which are carotenoid based, which are actually very powerful antioxidants. So we have the opportunity to replace things that parents might not be so happy about with something that we also sell as a health ingredient to provide very powerful benefits to your skin and your cells throughout your body.
Very good. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for doing that, Gene, and recording those clips. I had all intentions of doing the same thing myself, but I literally didn't have time with all those meetings.
Super busy. Truth be told, I went in early before the show was open because I had an exhibitor badge.
Oh, yeah. I should have done that. I should have done that.
That's how I was able to do it. So I didn't have time during the show so much.
Well, I didn't have time to do that either because I had breakfast meetings or earlier meetings, and then we had our Science Advisory Board meeting with you and Tim and Elijah. We had that on Thursday morning, so that was early at 7:30. So yeah, well, thanks for doing those clips, and we'll try to do better next time, guys, and try and capture more of that. Next year, Gene, it's going to be a different scenario for NutriSelect. Maybe we'll actually have a booth. I don't know. We'll see if that's necessary. At the very least, I think we'll head up an education session, and we can have all of our CRO partners there and all of our other partners who are supporting NutriSelect there. And
that'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun to do. So we'll take over the whole stage and the whole session, and that's what I envision doing. I think that's more of value than having a booth, because the booth is again, this is a health tech consumer app primarily, but we are working with ingredient companies and product brands who tend to show. So I think an education session would be a good idea that we do that. So,
I think it'd be an excellent idea. Yeah.
that's what I'm going to say is next for next year for SupplySide. We're going to do that, and that means I will have a videographer, photographer in tow who will be able to record all that stuff in real time, and I don't have to think about it. And we'll have somebody else do that record that. And actually, I have the right guy to do that. I'll have to reach out to him to see if he's available next year. Anyway, so let's wrap it up. What is your 3 top takeaways from SupplySide, and then I'll share mine.
My 3 top takeaways are that, there's a lot of stuff trending, but the 2 biggies are women's health and longevity. And another thing I see is that people are really, really interested in the actual science. And you can tell it by, you look at some of the education sessions that are offered, and you see the ones that really are covering some of the science as being, I think, viewed as more credible, and they get much larger audiences. And my third takeaway is it was so very good to see so many of my friends and colleagues that I've known for decades, and some that I have known just for a short period of time. There was one lady from China who we've been corresponding. She connected with me on LinkedIn. We've been corresponding about different things, nutraceuticals, and talking. And she came by our booth, and it was great. It was like, seeing somebody from around the other side of the earth that came over and gave me a hug, and it was so nice to just, be able to connect like that.
Yeah, that's one of my 3 because it was so busy with the meetings but a lot of those were colleagues that I've known for years in many cases. So it was great reconnecting with them. And however, there were a lot of people that were there that I didn't get a chance to get to meet up with. There wasn't time, or and it's really sad because it's like there actually isn't enough time in those couple of days to go meet with everybody that we know a lot of people, right, Shane? So so you have to find those events or networking receptions. I did go to the APA, by the way, networking reception. It was super crowded.
Nice.
They had the room was too small. Actually, they needed to get a bigger room next year. So I got invited to go. HP Ingredients invited me to go over there. Gave me a ticket. So, but yeah, that was fun. So I got to do a little bit of that, but not much. So, but my other 2 takeaways are one is it's really, really, I see this happening because I'm in this now pivoted to health tech entrepreneur. I'm in this AI technology space. This is just exploding in every industry right now. And if you look in the $1 trillion healthcare industry, I get Health USA's newsletter every day. There's millions being invested in leveraging this technology for all kinds of things. It's going to advance research and all kinds of things over the next few years, I would say. And it's going to accelerate pretty quickly. So for me, that's exciting. And I think what's fascinating is that I was thinking, one of these big trade associations or NBJ or somebody or Informa, they need to kind of come to me and say, we need to do something on AI. Well, Nutri-Ingredients was the first. They started doing this interview series. And now CRN is actually doing a webinar on this because clearly this is starting to infiltrate our industry. And we're going to lead the way with that with NutriSelect, of course. So to me, that's the second big takeaway because it is a tipping point for transformation of this industry and how consumers buy supplements. And the whole dynamic of that trade show is going to change over the next few years as this gets, goes viral and really gets out there in a huge way. And then the third thing is, what's the third thing? Wow. I just feel so, I just love going to that and feeling that energy from that. It creates a lot of momentum. We have a lot of follow-ups for NutriSelect, so stay tuned for news that's coming over the next few weeks. Look, I just got contacted by an investment firm out of Geneva, Switzerland. I just had a call with the CEO today. and NutriSelect fits their thesis. We're still raising capital, by the way. So there's clearly a lot of interest around the world, not just in the U.S., it's everywhere, of people wanting to get into this sector for sure. And it was an exciting conversation with him. Clearly he gets it. It's like maybe he watched our AI episode on the Bioactive Nexus, it seems like, but he seemed to have some really good insights into the technology space here, which is cool. So
Nice.
I think that's it for me in terms of that. We have an upcoming show. We'll do our end of the year recap. We'll do that in December, I think, Gene, and we'll do a preview for the new program that we have mapped out for 2026, which is super exciting. We're not going to give that away. We'll save that for the next episode. But yeah, very cool. And it was great to see you, man.
It was great to see you too. We talk almost daily, and we see each other on our any kind of video chats or this kind of thing. But nothing quite like seeing each other in person.
No, it's not quite the same. And we didn't do our karaoke thing this year. So,
and my voice was okay this year. Last year I had that cold.
Yeah, I remember. Well, next time. I have a feeling we're going to get together before then, though. So with NutriSelect, with this exciting stuff happening. So that'll be fun. But yeah. So again, stay tuned for the upcoming episode for our end of year recap and our 2026 preview. And of course, if you got any questions, reach out to either Gene or I on LinkedIn or on the website. There's a contact form there you can reach out to us.
And remember, if you want a free copy of my my how-to book on how to formulate biohacking longevity products, just send us an email or a text or something online, and be happy to share it with you.
Cool. All right, man. Let's take it out of here, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Bioactive Nexus, and to close out the year. Wow, it's already November. It's coming up the holidays. Crazy. See you guys later.